doing different things, maybe preservation and looking at condition, and how do we actually properly select those treatments. Again, the point I want to make is that as engineers, so this is a shot of Toronto Airport, and this is a very critical study, the fast track repair, because you don't want any type of infrastructure being ingested into the aircraft. So we actually went out and tried several different products and came up with design tools. This is actually also funded by the Portland Cement Association in Skokie, because of cold climate, of course. And these methods have been applied certainly across Canada, and I believe as well the northern US. In the end, what we want to do is think about the technical impacts. So if we have infrastructure and it's brand new and then it deteriorates over time, and then at some point we do something, every time you do something there's a cost stream of that. And again, this idea of sustainability, environmental impacts, we know that if we continue to do things the way we've always done, that environmental impact will be much larger. So for you guys, you want to make sure, like from my perspective, I want my kids and my grandkids to actually have good infrastructure. Okay? And if we continue to do what we've always done, we're not going to have that. So closing quickly, it's about good technology and people that are actually making advances. So our research team works quite closely with industry in order to achieve that. We need to look at climate change, and we need to look at those parameters. We do a lot of lab testing and field testing. So I find my students, our graduate program, there's a lot of hands-on. So they're actually quite marketable. I have a problem where industry's trying to hire them before they're done. So no, don't hire them until the thesis is written. And experimental design and so on. Okay, so I just want to acknowledge a lot of the work that I've presented is partnership with different organizations. And I leave you with a nice photo that I took not that long ago of fall in Canada. So any questions? Quickly, I think we've got 5 minutes. And we started late, so.
You talked about usage of recycled concrete.
Yeah.
And you said that you get credible structural characteristics as well when you use that.
Yeah.
But when we use recycled concrete, along with the aggregate, it brings the solidified cement matrix paste as well. So with multiple usages of that concrete again and again, the percentage of this paste will increase, the cement matrix paste. So will it have any impact on the strength of the structures?
So the important thing with the recycled concrete is how you're actually crushing it. So if you're using a cone crusher as opposed to a jaw crusher, so this is where what we do as researchers actually relates a lot to what's done in the field. So that's why I recommend you all get some construction experience. You have less of an issue related to that, because if you're using a cone crusher, it actually is getting rid of that mortar that is weaker. You can also treat it. So we've done a lot of work where we're looking at treating the aggregate before you actually add it in. The biggest issue if you're adding recycled concrete in is it's highly absorptive. And so you really have to watch your WC ratio, your water cement ratio, because when we placed the test track and had 30%, it was sucking up the water out of the mix. It was very dry coming out of the back end of the truck. So we actually stopped the process, had the contractor go back and put soaker hoses on the stockpiles, and then restart the process. So I think recycled concrete, it should be tested like we do traditional aggregate. And we've actually developed a decision tree where, you know, if it's premium, it can be used in structural. That's like king of the castle, right? But there's a lot of recycled concrete that doesn't meet the criteria, and then you want to use that maybe as base or unshrinkable fill or something like that. Good question. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Acho.
Nice presentation. So you talked about working with departments of transportation on smart growth principles.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the process and the status of
basically infiltrated into our DOT to ensure that they are applying some of these treatments and techniques in the most appropriate places. We have agencies across Canada that are very proactive. Fortunately, our chief engineer in the province of Ontario, very proactive. So they are really doing a lot of, as I said, we've got over 100, actually I think we've got close to 200 test sections across Canada now. I've kind of lost track of them, but I haven't lost track of them. People are monitoring them, but off the top of my head, my students would be like, Professor Tighe, so where other agencies are not as proactive. And I have found over the years, and we've had many discussions about that, if you have very open, proactive managers, then we see a lot of progress. So in Ontario, we're working very closely with the deputies. Deputy minister, I think that's like, who's the head of transportation? What do you call them?
Commissioner.
Commissioner. So that would be the equivalent of the commissioner. The commissioner, yeah, so the deputy's office, so we will actually provide updates. The solar road stuff, like they're looking at using that for carpool lots. So people pull in and charge their vehicle. So, but it's I think the one point I want to make to you guys is that there are a lot of opportunities to make improvements. If you're creative and you can, but never lose sight of the fact that we can do a lot of really good stuff in the lab, but it has to relate to the field. And that's why I think getting some construction experience, like I said, my first 2 years I worked in construction, and that has been very valuable to me as a researcher, trying stuff, and then we do the trials to make sure it works.
Any further question from you guys? Any question?
Oh, I have something I'll ask him later.
Okay, sure.
I'm worried. You said they're going to kick us out of the room, so it's like 5 to...
Yeah,
Oh, my voice is okay. I think I sound terrible. But anyway.
I think the one that I want to question, the one you listed several of the kind of issue there, or some of the challenges in the future we're facing. Some of those is the material loss.
Yeah.
And now there's a climate change. I saw the figure that you shown there in terms of the stuff because of flooding, etc. Is there any study they already show that because of flooding, how much the deterioration is going to be dropped? Because several years ago in Atlanta, there's some cases there. And in I-285, you feel some of the section there, the concrete pavement, they deteriorate much faster.
Yeah.
But happened to be that location had some flooding experience there.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you guys do some study now, say, is that 20% drop or how many percent?
Yeah, 20. So a lot of that deterioration depends on how long it's submerged. So in general, the ideology is that if there's flooding, you want to try and get the water off that infrastructure. So not only like the pavement, but if you have bridges, which is even more challenging if you have a river or something, to get the piers not from being submerged in the water. So we did some studies where actually there was a section of roadway in Manitoba where it was flooded for 36 hours, and the flooding was so severe, and it was an older pavement that actually they lost 50% of their life. So it can be really dramatic. So the idea is that to be proactive, so to design areas like that where if they're in flood zones, to try and get that drainage. So it's substantial. The point I want to make is it's huge.
Continuing on the one that challenge or the issue that you have, I want you to name maybe the top one that you think is most important, what do you want?
I think the the incorporation of, or a better understanding of climate change impacts. I mean, it's hard to say one, because the other issue we have at airports, we have heavier aircrafts. You know, we have heavier trucks. We have a lot of changes in truck technology you might not be aware of, but the way central tire inflation, super single tires, there's a lot of changes that trucks are, Walmart has those long, I don't know if you have them here, but those extended transport vehicles, they have a huge impact on the infrastructure, both bridges and, so I think it's both. I think, but I think flooding is definitely a major issue for us, for you guys, but even for us as well, because we're seeing more rainfall in shorter periods of time, and we know that if it's submerged, it has a dramatic impact on life cycle.
Okay, very
So-
good. It's about time, so please join me, thank you.